Welcome to the Soulful Summer Series, where it's not woo-woo, it's wow-wow. Hello again, nature friends. We have another wonderful guest as part of our Soulful Summer Series here at the Nature Nurse, where we say it is not just woo-woo, it is wow-wow, and I think this will be another conversation that will exemplify this. So today we have my nurse colleague, Lisbeth Overton, and Lisbeth helps women break free from the pain of cervical dystonia, which I'm sure she'll tell us a little bit more about, so they can live with more ease, comfort, confidence, mobility, and joy. And here at the Nature Nurse, we love that word, joy. Her 27-year nursing career was gobsmacked when a rare neurological disorder robbed her of the things she enjoyed and her belief in her capacity to be well. After studying energy, quantum physics, and the power of the subconscious mind, she learned how to thrive. She lives in Minneapolis, Minnesota, with her husband and 2 kitties. So today it is my pleasure to welcome Lisbeth Overton. So, welcome, Lisbeth Overton. We are thrilled to have you here as part of our Soulful Summer series. And this is a part where we are doing a deeper dive into looking at our relationship with nature, and this series specifically as how it impacts our soul. So, when I think of people that are really soulful and really connected and appreciative of nature, you're definitely one of those people that come to mind. So, we're thrilled that you're here. And our theme this week is harmony. And another reason why you're such a great guest for this, because I think it is that harmonious relationship that you have with nature that has led you to some really, as we say, it's not woo-woo, it's wow-wow experiences. And so we're hoping that you will share, and we are inspired and excited to learn more about your journey. So welcome, and let me just go ahead and dive right in and ask you more about specifically about maybe how your connection with nature, what it has done for you.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me. This is so fun. And I love that background. Oh, I just want to come over there on your screen with you.
Let's just go to the real beach.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So, say the question again.
So basically, tell us a little bit more about what your divine experience is with nature and how it's impacted your soul.
Sure. So, I want to share 2 experiences that are just have been so powerful in my life. So, I had a significant event at my favorite lake, Lake Harriet in Minneapolis in 2018 that I'll talk about. But I want to preface that by saying that I spent all of my summers in Richmond, Virginia at my grandparents' house going to camp every summer. Some of the best memories that I have. And this must have been about 7 years ago, we, as a family, went to what was my grandparents' home, where my uncle and aunt still live, and we pulled up into the driveway. And Sue, when I got out of the car and I captured this glorious pine tree that I spent thousands of hours beneath as a child, like living there in the summer, something clicked within me. You talk about resonance, you talk about synchronicity, you talk about harmony. And I had this light bulb moment where I was like, oh, this right here, this beautiful tree right here explains so much. It was like a remembering of I talk to the trees. The trees talk to me because I would sit with my back up against this one gorgeous pine for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And so it's kind of like we don't actually appreciate the influence that Mother Gaia, that nature has on us until we allow ourselves these opportunities. I mean, it took my breath away. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so incredible. And so, another experience that I had was, I think this was in 2018, and I was literally fighting with myself to overcome this limiting belief that I wasn't creative enough to be successful as an entrepreneur. And I have been going to this Lake Harriet. It's about 3 miles from where I live, and um, there is something about this place. I am attracted to this place like a moth to a flame. I can't describe it. I just need to be there. And it doesn't matter what is going on in my life. As soon as I set my feet on the grounds there, it's like everything that has been bothering me just goes away. And I just feel literally held in the palm of the hand of Mother Gaia. And it's very powerful. And so I just go there and I walk around. It's just like 3.2 miles, one lap around, and loaded with trees, loaded with trees. So this one afternoon, just like any other afternoon that I go there, I hear this voice that says, "Hey, Elizabeth, you should create a card deck called Divine Downloads Channeled Wisdom from Your Soul." And I'm by myself. So I start like looking around like this, looking to see like where did that come from? And immediately, I wish I could have seen myself because immediately I just start cracking up. I'm like, are you serious right now? Like I remember I'm not creative. And so I get this message or whatever. And in reflection, I feel like that message was given to me from the trees at this lake. So when I talked about going back to Virginia and getting out of the car, and right here on my computer, I have a sticker that says take a hike, and the eye is connected to a big tree. So I'm just a tree person. And so after I got that message, from the time that I received that message to the time where I literally held these in my hands was 2 months. It was the most flow state, creative, easy thing that I have ever done. And because I had never done something like this, my tendency was, I don't know if you or your listeners can relate, I'm so creative. And so I always have these ideas. However, executing and following through on them is where I fall down. And then I get frustrated and I feel like a failure. Um, so I just ordered these from China and I got one deck. And when I sat and held these cards in my hand, Sue, all of I call them angels and guides came around me. I could feel their presence. And it was this tidal wave of they were applauding me, they were celebrating me. And it was just, people talk about Christ consciousness or oneness or all that is, that is how I felt in that moment. I felt like I was one with everything. And just the amount of love and actual pride that they had for this simple thing that I did, like words don't do justice. And I literally said, okay, if I die tonight, I am complete. Like I got the message. And so, fast forward a little while, and I just felt this new sense of awareness, this new sense of being that I was connected to something greater than myself. And because of that connection, I started to realize, we have free will. We have got to ask whoever you believe in, whatever it is, whatever label you would use it. And when we do, things will come into our awareness that have been here all along, but we didn't have access to. And so what it has done for me is I just feel so supported. I just feel so connected. And so I mean, my husband will tell you, I'm a rainbow chaser. I will probably wreck the car because I'm trying to capture the sunset or the moon or whatever. I just have always been very connected to nature and Mother Gaia is just she's such powerful medicine in my experience.
Wow, wow. Well, what I think is so fascinating is that you're not alone in this, and I just love these stories because what you're talking about, like one of the things we started as part of in the beginning of the series in our e-newsletter is a book recommendation called The Awakened Brain by Dr. Lisa Miller, who is a professor at Columbia University, and she is actually studying the neuroscience, the what actually happens in your brain when these kind of things happen. And so she calls it a state of awakening. And so, and like you say, and so I guess what I think is so fascinating about that is that here's science not just is, substantiating what we're experiencing, and that once you're awakened, it transforms your brain in a way that you can't not know that anymore. So it puts you on a whole other trajectory of life.
hmm
And
hmm
I know you have since gone on to now that you have feel the support and have the courage and have the experience of actually creating something. How has that amplified your creativity now?
Well, it's so funny. I attract super other creatives, artists, like it doesn't matter the medium that's used. Um, and it's just, well, creativity is in our being, it's in our DNA. And so to me, I just feel more aligned. I feel more grounded in my body. That's the other thing that it has done for me is I didn't even know what being grounded meant. And I was preparing to have surgery and I was working with I was going to a yoga class and this person happened to be a yoga therapist. And I said, could you like work with me before I have my surgery? And he's like, yeah. And so we had a couple sessions and it's so funny when you've gone most of your life not being grounded. So at the first appointment, I'm laying face down on the table and he touches the bottoms of my feet and I'm like, is it normal to feel like I want to get up and run away? And he said, yeah, if you were not used to being grounded, absolutely. And I was like, oh goodness. And it was such a wild experience. And because we're so in our heads or not even in our bodies. And after the session, I sat up on the table and he sat next to me and he's like, did you feel that? And I was like, no. And he goes, you were so grounded, but the minute got vertical, you left your body. And it's just like, so this is just another, I guess, correlate or touch point for people are just walking around on what I call autopilot and they're not in the physical body and connecting with nature, all the research shows it is grounding because of the things like the negative ions that are everywhere, especially in large bodies of water. It helps us feel more not in our head and more in our body. And when you're more in your body, this is just kind of the way that I understand it, is you're more aware of what's going on in your physical temple. And then with enough practice, you start to become open to, I don't know, the cosmos, the spiritual, the what's possible. And so you literally become what I call an open channel. You're grounded to the earth and you're open to the heavens. And so when you create that, well, maybe like in, traditional Chinese medicine, the qi, like the energy is flowing, it's running on all cylinders, which is the way that we are designed. And so um, I'm frankly safer than I've ever been because I'm in my body. And when you're in your body, if you have, let's say, a weird reaction to a medication or a food, you can start being like, oh, well, when I took that medicine or when I ate that food, I started getting like watery eyes or whatever. It helps you connect your own dots. But I think the coolest thing is feeling supported. So literally, there's nothing that I lack because I have this. In yoga, we say this is yoga. It's like, hello, we have the whole universe supporting us. And so another thing that it has done, Sue, is that I have cultivated so much self-trust. And to me, I feel like nature has been the conduit for that somehow. I don't really know how. I don't really care. I just I like it.
No, I completely resonate with what you're saying because, as we go through life, there's situations that present, um, you know, which path do we take?
Mhm.
And, this was something I talked to Jackie Levin about in the first episode. And traditionally I would always, lean on asking my mother or, a friend or someone. And, so you end up getting all this advice. But then, as you get older, you start to realize, well, that, they meant well, but that may not have been the best advice for me. And so
Mhm.
now being able to rely on my connection with nature and going there to try to discern which is the best course of action, which is the right path to take in my life or whatever, or just being open to what do you need me to know? Because,
Mhm.
there we're like you say, we're wandering around not knowing what we don't know, but it's all there.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
just, inviting that information has been extremely transformative and
Mhm.
and supportive and just always there. I mean, if you can get outside the door or even open a window or even, just sit with a house
Mhm.
plant if you're bedbound or something, um,
Yeah.
it's so magical and it's so simple that it almost
Yes.
feels like this is too easy.
That's the piece right there that I have found in my work is that people um, believe three things that are not true. And that is that I'll just call it healing, whatever that means to a person, right? Think that needs to be extremely complex or complicated to work or to be effective. It
Hmm.
needs to take a gazillion years and it needs to be extremely expensive. And I give you nature. I mean, there's tons of research. They took this group of people out for 2 weeks and all of their biometrics, their anxiety, their stress, all of their numbers came down. It's like being off the grid, right? And there was another beautiful study where patients that all they had was a window. It didn't matter if the window was looking at the parking lot, they had better clinical outcomes. So there's got to be something going on here, right? That's so supportive. And those of us who are willing to take the time to nurture that connection, I mean, it's the return on investment and the margins are, I mean, it's peace. Like that's all anybody ever really wants is peace, right? So it's like, and you can just visualize a tree or look at a picture and your feel-good hormones increase by like thousands of percentage points. So to your point, we got to get back to the KISS principle. Simplicity is always a good path, and that's actually the way that this life is supposed to be designed. But again, we have these false beliefs that, well, if I'm not dead on the floor with no pulse and I'm certainly not doing enough, I mean, nurses, that's a whole nother topic. But so yeah, it's such a it just makes life so rich when you're plugged into it.
Yeah, yeah. So how do you, as part of this Harmony series, how do you yourself give back to nature? Because one of the things we're talking about this week is reciprocity.
Yeah, so it might maybe it's a little bit outside the box, but to me, I think about being in harmony in nature is flowing with it and being one with it. And that could look like different things. Like every time when I do a meditation, I'm basically plugging in and having gratitude for Mother Gaia or doing group intentions with other people just on behalf of Mother Gaia or groups of people or parts of the world, like with everything that is going on in the universe right now. And just simple things like recycling and using my awesome water bottle, instead of, buying more plastic and being gentle with Mother Nature and I guess, be the change, just modeling what it looks like to be in true resonance and harmony with nature is is doing things that aren't harmful, to her, whether that be um, not using creepy chemicals, in the yard, and being a recycler, and just being conscious uh, of being a human at this time and not creating more waste, more, just being intentional with all of my choices. And, um, like buying local instead of buying something, from some other country that has to be imported because of the gases and all I mean, just little simple things like that. I would say that's kind of how I do that.
Well, and that goes back to being embodied, like you were saying, as when you're embodied and then you become more mindful of the whole as opposed to just overriding because I've got to get this done, I've got to get this done, I've got to do this,
Yeah,
and we're constantly overriding what our intuition, what nature's trying to tell us in whatever way it is. It's, like I always use the analogy of like an internet connection is that, when it's all fuzzy, you can't get your answers, but you have to wait until it links. And once it links, then you've got access to the whole world kind of thing. So,
absolutely. That's my life's work is rendering. Yeah, that's totally being patient for the wisdom. And sometimes it takes longer than most of us. Yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Tell us a little bit about what cervical dystonia is.
oh, perfect. So, cervical dystonia does not have to do with a woman's cervix. It has to do with the cervical spine. So, dystonia basically means abnormal movements of muscles. And so, cervical dystonia is a rare neurological disorder that affects the head, the neck, and the shoulder, specifically the cervical spine. And there's a part of the brain called the basal ganglia where that part of your brain tells your body when and how to move. And we don't really know why. Sometimes these cases can be idiopathic. We don't know the reason. Sometimes they can be acquired or they're a secondary symptom from something else, or sometimes they can be genetic, which is more of a generalized dystonia. And dystonia can affect any body part, but in cervical dystonia, it's mainly the head, the neck, and shoulders. And so what happens is it can cause the head to either be in a lateral position or posterior, anterior, and literally get stuck like that. And then the neck has these wild muscle spasms that all of this is involuntary. So it just happens. And so I've had it for many years and it's quite debilitating. And as a nurse, I was having all of these weird things. My head was moving on its own. And, I'm like, that's not normal. So I did what all people do. I try to act like it didn't really happen. And then I kept trying to drink my coffee and you don't think about what you're doing when you're drinking something, but my head would go to the side and I'm like, what's that? So went to the doctor. I was referred to a neurologist and he's like, oh yeah, you have cervical dystonia, just like it was, you have a sunburn. Like, so I made the mistake of going to Google and um, I was horrified by what I read about what my life was going to become. And so I had many dark years of the soul, depressed, anxious, couldn't drive at one point. And I was like, you know what? There has to be a better way. And so having this connection that I have with my intuition and with nature and, all this stuff, I just thought there has to be some more opportunities for people especially when they're first diagnosed, to know that this is nothing more than an invitation to come inside and do the work and to do the reflecting because nothing in my experience happens by accident. There's a grander purpose for all this and it's the soul path. It could be a diagnosis, it could be the death, it could be the divorce, it could be getting fired. We all have these big experiences and it's what do we choose to do with that? Either we could be the victim or it could be an opportunity for exponential soul growth. And so for me, I thought that I was in a pretty good place until you are told that you have something that has no cure. And it caused me to not believe in the well-being that I already knew and had possessed my whole life. And so I had to do some archaeological digging to recall and remember that well-being is my birthright and that there are ways that I can be that facilitate that. And so it was like, okay, hello.
Well, and it's remarkable because I've seen the pictures of when your neck was, for lack of a better
Mm,
word, kind of stuck in a certain position to
it
who
was
you
very
are
stuck.
today. And so now you
Yeah,
you coach and you help other women with this situation.
yeah.
Is that true?
Yes, because I don't want another woman. First of all, it's very isolating, and I don't want another woman to spend even 5 minutes on that fear train to nowhere it's not necessary. It's just that the way that things are set up in this model that we live in, um, pretty much it's like a death sentence for people because of what's so anyway it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to share what I have learned and what has helped me because it gives other people hope, it gives other people inspiration, and it's like I want to be the person for cervical dystonia like Roger Bannister was like for the 4 minute mile. Like, people said it was not humanly possible to run a mile in under 4 minutes. And as soon as he did it, I don't know, it was not even maybe 2 months, and another person did it. We need better models of how to do well-being, even if you have some weird diagnosis.
Yeah, and having been friends with the late Christopher and Dana Reeve, I mean, to me, they were such champions of exactly that. And
Yeah. Ugh,
even Dana creating the Paralysis Resource Center, so that people who were newly paralyzed and their loved ones had somewhere to go to, which Dana didn't have in the
yes.
beginning, was
Yes.
transformational. And her philosophy was always like, and she also set up quality of life grants so that, in the meanwhile, while they work towards finding a cure to paralysis,
Yeah.
you can still live a joyful life. And they very much, I can tell you from living right next door to them for 4 years, really did that. So
Yeah.
you're right, is setting that, you know, Chris Chris and I would talk about the, being out of the box, and I
Yeah.
remember one day he was frustrated. He's like, the box is too small.
Oh, yeah, definitely. There are days it's like, why is this happening? And just, yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah,
really, so I give you a lot of credit for taking your situation, not only healing yourself, through all the things that you've done, but also now helping others kind of make
Mhm.
that path a lot shorter. And you
Yes,
also
thank you.
offer a lot of other things as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So, oh, I think you're talking about my little cards here, perhaps. Is
Well,
that
I
what
know
you mean?
you're such a wealth of information. I mean, you do groups, you do cards, you have books.
Yeah, so these cards are the ones that came to me as a decree, and it was a not this might be a good idea. This was like, you will do this. And so, like, here's just an example. Each card has a word, an affirmation, and then I call them wisdom bits, things that I know to be true. So this says angels, and then the affirmation is I call on my angels to support me now. And then it says, you're absolutely supported by a posse of angels 24/7. All you have to do is invite them in. And then the question is, how can your angels help you today? So it's just in my lived experience, asking better questions and asking questions is such a wonderful way to connect to your intuition, connect to Mother Gaia, connect to all this collective intelligence that's here for us. And it's a great way to, write in a journal or use it with meditation. Um, I have some journals, and yeah, and I also work with people one-on-one as well.
Awesome. So I will put the links to your website, which I think has all these
Yes.
items on our comment section of the video. And is there any last wisdom you'd like to share with us today?
I would just like to thank you for this opportunity, Sue. It's so cool that we have never like physically met in person, even though I feel like I've known you a billion years. I love how the universe does that. I would just posit this, that wherever you are in a journey, just see if you can provide yourself a little bit more grace, a little bit more compassion, a little bit more love, because at the end of the day, that's where all things can bubble up from. When we're in fear and when we're blaming and shaming or shooting ourselves, nothing really expansive could come from that. So that would be my posit or send off. You are whole and worthy because you are, and that's perfect.
That's wonderful. And that's so timely for right now. I think that I know I will accept that and invite that
Yeah.
into my soul today, and I hope our listeners will as well. So thank you once again. It's always a joy to talk to you, and you're right, we have yet to meet in person, but somehow must be divinely organized that we were meant to connect. So it's always been a joy.
Thank you so much, Sue.
All right, take care.
Bye.